Hey YouTube, this is Turf MD here. Just starting a new channel to talk about the basics of turf management and how it relates specifically to golf courses and the golf courses' budgets and their overall long-term health and financial stability. So when talking about fundamentals of turf management, we're talking about things like mowing, fertilization, irrigation, pest management, and cultural practices. So thinking about those, they might seem really simple, but taken on their own, each category is really a big category and can be taken in depth as far as you want to go. But basically, when we're talking about mowing, you want to have sharp reels, machines that are mechanically operating properly. You want to have folks that are mowing the greens that know exactly how you want the greens to be mowed so that there isn't any mechanical damage being done, and so that that procedure is being performed exactly as you want it as a golf course superintendent. Also, we're talking about managing mowing heights properly. That's another thing, it's another skill I think that is underappreciated in turf management, is trying to achieve really fast greens is what everybody wants, but how do you get there without damaging or injuring the turf? And basically what I've seen is, and the way I like to do it, is to lower the height slowly and gradually over time so that the turf has a chance to adjust and acclimate to its lower mowing heights. And it's interesting because as the season progresses through June, July, and August, we'll slowly lower the mowing heights about 0.03 of an inch every 7 to 10 days. Doesn't seem like much, but over time what happens is the greens get faster and faster and faster during the summertime, when most folks kind of expect the opposite, where we're going to raise the mowing heights a little bit because it's hot and we don't want the turf to be under too much environmental stress. I have basically the opposite philosophy, and during the summertime we consistently lower the mowing heights unless there is some sort of extreme weather event where it's going to be extremely hot, where extremely hot in this region of the Northeast would be if it's going to be in the 90s, high 90s for an extended period of time, but more dependent on nighttime temperatures, where if they're going to be in the mid 70s, let's say, we might skip a day of mowing, or we may mow at a slightly higher height, maybe raise the height a couple thousandths and mow them at that height. But for the most part, we're slowly and consistently lowering the heights during the summertime to achieve really ultra fast green speeds and ultra smooth playing conditions on our greens. Irrigation is an interesting subject that I think here in the Northeast, where my golf course is located, is pretty much underappreciated, because the Northeast is almost like the United States rainforest. I actually didn't appreciate irrigation until I moved out west and had a chance to work in Arizona for a while. I was working at a golf course at 5,000 feet elevation, and water out there is absolutely critical. Irrigation is absolutely vital to the success of the golf course. It can actually make or break you out there in the West. It's the key. Where you don't have rain, you need your irrigation system working perfectly. I think guys out here in the Northeast tend to only appreciate the irrigation system when we go through a little bit of a drought. A drought out here is 2 or 3 weeks without rain, where out west you can easily go months without ever seeing a drop. Fertilizer is an interesting subject. You can get as complicated as you want to get with it. We try and keep it simple. Basically only put down granular fert during our aerification process to help us heal. We put down a ½ pound of NatureSafe 545 natural organic. And during the year we probably start sometime in April with a biweekly foliar application of fertilizers, which we keep in the really low range. The most we'll ever go out with is a 1/10 of a pound of nitrogen, and most times it's a little bit less than that. So we tend to keep it simple. We keep our fertility balanced, and it's all based on soil tests in conjunction with tissue testing to determine basically the needs of what our turf needs. We come in and address the deficiencies first, and then we go from there. And when it comes to nitrogen fertilizer, there's a lot of skill, experience, touch and feel involved, if you will, and that's how we basically manage our fertilizer program at our golf course. Pest management is also a thing where it's a subject where I think a lot of guys underappreciate the pest pressure, the insect pressure, the disease pressure, and the weed pressure that they have at their golf course. I think a lot of turf loss is undiagnosed, mainly due to insect damage. Insects are kind of tough because a lot of them are soil-dwelling insects that do their damage in the soil, away from the prying eyes of golf course superintendents. We can't physically see them for the most part on the surface. They're in the ground doing their damage, and we only really see it once their damage is evident. And by that time it's too late, the turf is gone, your golf course is in bad condition, and you may be getting your resume ready for your next job. I think diseases are a little bit easier to handle because you can actually see, for the most part, you can see the diseases on the surface of the turf. You can go out there and see some mycelium, and you can say, hey, we've got dollar spot active, we've got pythium, we've got whatever, we've got brown patch that's pretty evident. So, but then there are diseases that are soil-dwelling, root-infecting pathogens similar to the insects, where these diseases operate in the soil, they infect the roots, and the only evidence that you see of them on the surface is declining turf quality, decaying and dying turf. So it's important to understand diseases and insects and to have a really strong fundamental program on how to prevent the destructive capacity that they have to perform on a golf course. And last but not least, we'll talk about cultural practices a little bit. And I think that most superintendents out there can really appreciate the benefits of your standard cultural practices like aerification, top dressing. I know a lot of guys out there like to verticut. Some guys are out there brush cutting, and guys are using the graden as a great dethatching tool. So cultural practices are, in my opinion, what will take healthy turf and turn it into unbelievable, high-quality, world-class playing conditions. That's what sort of separates just, good turf conditions, good playing conditions from outstanding world-class conditions. That'll be cultural practices and more specifically grooming practices that sort of are the cherry on top. So like brush cutting and verticutting will take really, really healthy turf and turn it into just a pure unbelievable surface if done consistently over time by a skillful turf manager who understands what he's doing, and he's doing it at the proper times of the year and not when his turf is under severe heat stress or drought stress. And with the proper skill of a turf manager, the application of cultural practices will only benefit the turf. The overall health of the turf and the overall playing conditions of a golf course will be elevated through the proper use of cultural practices. So I think if you're a golf course out there that is experiencing some problems, some turf loss, especially if it's an annual reoccurring thing where the golf course is great in the spring, and then in the summertime when it kind of gets hot, it starts to go through a decline, and then in the fall it sort of recovers again and everything is great. If that's the case, I think what you really need to do is start to look at some pest management problems, but it's definitely going to be some basic fundamental problem that is causing it, or a lack of a basic fundamental application that will be causing a problem. So I really feel that with the application, the proper application of these fundamentals in a turf management situation on a golf course will benefit the playing conditions. It will benefit the members of the golf course with increased quality and playing conditions of the turf, and it will also benefit directly the financial health and well-being of the golf club.